Welcome to the Humans and Earth podcast. We bring you inspiration and practical resources for healing our planet and ourselves. It's time for soulful contributions that regenerate life on Earth. I'm Shara Arman, a thought leader and teacher who believes we're ready to renew Earth and heal ourselves in the process. You can find our work online at humansandearth.com and on Instagram at schoolhumansearth. I'd love for you to be on our newsletter list and receive our updates on Instagram. Please share our work at the School for Humans and Earth with anyone you think might be interested, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast so that we can include more and more people in the regeneration revolution that I believe is happening on planet Earth. Welcome to today's episode. Welcome back to Humans and Earth. I'm really happy today to have Amy Dempster with us. Amy helps people understand the healing power of the earth. What began as openly sharing her spiritual journey on her popular blog, Following Hawks, has become a resource for others wanting to learn how to communicate with nature and share their own unique healing gifts with the earth. Together with the spirits of the land in the mountains of Northwest Montana, Amy tends 7 portals on the land where she lives, along with any grid-keeping work that she is assigned. She also leads the Earth Tenders Academy, an immersive online journey to help others reestablish their connection with their ancient ancestors, learn to communicate with the seen and unseen forces in their environment, and respectfully offer their healing energies to places in need. Amy is also the host of the podcast, The Earth Keepers. And on her Earth Keepers podcast, you can learn a lot more about her story of the development of her practices and skills. She's shared quite a bit about that. And I think, Amy, your process of development has been really interesting. If we were going to record 2 episodes, I would ask you about that. But as we talked about, I thought we would focus today on maybe some practices or, very current kind of insights that might be helpful to people.
Wonderful.
So,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. It's really nice to be in conversation with you. What's on your mind or in your heart lately with regard to human beings here on planet Earth?
Oh, such a wonderful question. And, always, just my own unique perspective in these interesting times that we've been living in, especially the last year and a half or so. But, what I'm really seeing is a lot of opportunities to be creative and to really ground in a lot of the more kind of etheric, energetic type work that I've been doing, and really being shown how to bring that so much more into the physical. And so that really inspires me and excites me when when we really start interacting with the earth in that way and with energy in that way, to see what we can really create on a very different level than really probably we've been led to believe for so many years.
I love that you began with that, because I've been talking with people lately about how we human beings are meant to be a connecting point between the spiritual realms and the very physical earth realm. We can move in both of those realms. And
Right.
I'm feeling too, exactly as you said, we are in a new and really exciting time of grounding the spirituality into the physical. So, wow, wonderful, wonderful way to begin. So do you notice your own work shifting, or the people you're working with are up-leveling, or new tools are coming online for you, or just clearer experiences? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it a little bit of everything, but definitely my work has been shifting and changing this year, and it's taken me a lot of the year to kind of feel into it, honestly. I think initially, well, last year, a lot of it felt like, drinking from a fire hose. There was so much energy moving and coming in, and so much, downloads and processing and integrating and all of these things happening. And it was almost like, that after that December solstice, like the switch flipped, and it was like being in a completely new place, but much quieter and much, for a while I was kind of looking around and just saying, where did everybody go? Like what happened? And what I've come to realize is it is a lot of that integration, and that really a lot of experiences that I was having, where I guess I would just describe it as feelings and experiences that were outside of myself, where I would maybe before say, oh, this particular guide came and had this conversation with me or explained this to me. It's all kind of integrated in a different way now, where it's just within. But that means it's really kind of quiet in a different way, and has really kind of shifted how I'm tuning in, how I'm connecting, how I'm really kind of bringing that energy in, and just it's become really, really clear to me how much all of these things we've taken as being outside of us are really within us, and they are all just you know not coming up with the right word, but pieces of ourselves, and uh, in some way as the all is one, right? And we are all one, but in many ways of, oh, these are just other fragments of my soul. And we were all just working together before, but now we're, it's more integrated within me. And so I think that's where a lot of the shift has come to, like, ground things in and bring them into the physical plane, is because I am in this physical form here in this timeline, in this body. And so, yeah, how do I bring that forward? And so that's a really big piece that's changed for me. The other piece really is in doing energy work with the earth. A lot of that has changed as well, but it is very much in this, creative realm of, how do you want to solve this problem, or what are the options to create, to put things together and create something new. And so that's been really, really fun to explore and experiment with.
I really appreciate that you talked about that. I mean, first of all, I'll mention in agreement with you, I've heard other people also saying the guides I knew as, beings with names and distinct voices all seem to have merged into one, internal guidance system. No, it's not just you. My friend Jaylene Tracy, whom I interviewed last summer on this podcast, has been talking about that too. And I've had some experience of that myself. I want to ask you more about what you just said, though, about experiences where you realize that you, as the human being, as in the service role you're in, actually have a creative choice about how to solve a problem. I almost feel like that's the teaching we need to be imparting on the planet right now, because I still talk to people all the time who are feeling helpless and paralyzed and disempowered, and, oh, there's this catastrophe and there's this catastrophe and climate change is going to get us and we're running out of water. And this realization that we are so much more powerful than we realize, and we are the creative choice makers in many instances. It's so important. Do you, by any chance, have a story or an example that you would like to share about that, or just say more about how you see that creativity and human choice playing out?
Yeah, I mean, and kind of two pieces on it. The message that really came through, that just made it kind of feel so easy to me, was almost this formula that I was shown, and it was, creativity plus consciousness equals change. And so the consciousness can be all kinds of things, right? Water is a consciousness, a tree is a consciousness, the earth is a consciousness, all of these, I am a consciousness. And so when you start, kind of using them as building blocks, then they are creating change. And it can be really disheartening and depressing to feel like we see what's happening, to the earth, to humanity, and feel like there's nothing I can do. I can't do, or I'm doing what I can do, but it's not enough. And and that's the kind of missing pieces. I think we've lost a lot of our understanding of our power to create change on an energetic level that ultimately does create change and is able to do things on a much bigger level. And one of the things that really kind of led me down this path earlier this year was, I do a lot of work with, energetic grid lines in the earth. And, over thousands of years, there have been many other humans that know exactly how to work with grid lines, and have in many cases, you know, perhaps not worked with them in the highest of integrity. And so I will be doing, readings or healing work with land in a specific place, and will be shown, this grid line has been compromised in some way. And sometimes it's just, something physical, that happened to the land. A highway went, cut right through it, or, a housing development's been built that threw off the balance in some way. And sometimes it was a conscious choice by somebody to shift, move the energy, layer different energies on top of it. There's all kinds of things that you come across. And so I was kind of going through a period of readings where it was one after another was having these issues. And it was really kind of depressing me. Like, what, I can't fix this, right? This isn't for, one person to do. And how do I not know someone else isn't going to come right behind me and undo the work that I just did? And so it was in the kind of the asking of the question and being frustrated that, that I was really shown how much also, the energy on the earth has shifted and changed, and how much consciousness has changed. And that when we're really able to channel source energy, it's really divine love, right? That's, we're all operating on, or should be, operating on in our highest and best, versions of ourselves. That is what's really making the shift. That is what's, changing things. And so when each of us are able to kind of tap into that energy and work with the earth in that way, it doesn't just have to be the grids, really anything. It's giving the opportunity for everything to energetically up level to that higher vibration. And once we do that, it's almost impossible or completely impossible for, something to come in and manipulate or shift or change it from that frequency. And so, that was really encouraging to me to kind of see and experience and feel like we are doing this. We are shifting consciousness. We are helping, and working in partnership with the earth, to make these changes. And you know love is really, just such a powerful energy to work with, that, the more of us that can be doing it, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. And I hear you as you really cultivate that heart energy of divine love, you almost become the transformative portal yourself, right? And you're
Yeah.
just coming back to what we talked about earlier too, of the human being that connecting point between the energetic or spiritual realms and the physical realm, that's a really nice example of how to do that. So you teach specific practices to people. For our listeners who might be thinking, this sounds really intriguing, but what do I do? um, Maybe you could suggest, I mean, you're welcome to talk about anything you want, but maybe kind of a beginner level and a more advanced level type approach. What are you advocating right now for people to test out as physical spiritual beings on this physical spiritual planet?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I've been talking a lot about lately, because it's something that I've done kind of spontaneously the last few years while doing healing work, but it's become a lot more clear this year, kind of how this works and why it works. But is really working through toning, which is really just, carrying a tone with your voice. You don't have to have a good singing voice or anything else. And it can feel a little weird sometimes if you're, out at the park and there's people around you, you might want to go where you're not right where they can hear you. On the other hand, I think those are the things we do that are shifting consciousness. And somebody says, what is that weird lady over there doing?
Yeah, Mom, I hear these tones.
When I'm playing my singing bowl and toning. But it really is working with that energy. So much of working with that energy and letting it come through us, really moves through our heart more than anything. And so really going outside, you don't have to be outside, but it's amazing when you're outside, and really kind of feeling into the energy, getting yourself into a really good kind of feeling energetic space. And then consciously with intent, calling in that source energy, calling in that frequency of divine love, feeling it come into your heart, and then with a tone, send that energy, out through your heart, and you can direct it wherever you'd like. It works better when you have a specific intention. If you're sending it to a tree or a crystal or, an animal or however you want to do it, but you can send it to the earth in general. And I usually see it as kind of a figure eight, because, when we're working with that frequency, also, anything we're kind of putting out in that way comes back to us. And usually it's amplified. So, so it benefits us as well while we're doing that. But I just kind of picture this energy moving through my heart and out into the earth. And then it kind of, turns around and comes back into my heart, where it turns around and goes back out to the earth. And, when you find a tone, everybody has a tone that's just really easy and comfortable for them. You can start by just humming and, finding a tone that feels comfortable. You'll find that it actually comes out of you very easily, and you can hold it a lot longer than you think. But I actually led people through this a few weeks ago on Zoom, and I've been getting so many messages since then of everybody who's telling me what they're doing or what happens when they're toning. And animals especially seem to be really, really responsive. Lots of people are telling me like, oh, I was toning and then this fox showed up, or I actually saw one this morning that said I was toning and a moose walked through with two babies just a couple of minutes later. And I live out in the woods, and I have found that sometimes I've been toning and not realize that like there's a deer standing nearby or some turkeys or something like that. And they just stand quietly while I do it, where normally you'd expect them, like they suddenly realize a human's there and they're going to run away. And so it's really remarkable to see some of the physical effects of that. I've had flowers popping up on my property here that are in the vicinity of where I like to go and tone, that have never been on this property before. And so it's just really, really cool to see, again, taking our consciousness and, sending that frequency out.
Out through the voice. Yeah. I have a friend who does a lot of toning, and she was in Mexico a couple of years ago, crossing a body of water and started toning, and a mother and baby whale showed up. So yes, I have heard these stories too. And for anybody who hasn't tried toning yet, a good way to begin is to play with vowel sounds also, right? Because a lot of the tones that we end up making naturally are kind of like vowel sounds. So if you're not really sure how to test this out, in your bedroom or out in your backyard or in a park or in the forest or whatever, you can kind of run through the vowel sounds and just see where you settle it as a tone that's comfortable for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll feel it go to work in your own body. And yeah, and once you kind of get the hang of it, you can play around, like you say, with what happens if I, move my mouth in a different way, or go higher or go lower. It's really, it's a very intuitive practice. It gets us out of our head, or wondering, am I doing this right? Or, you're really working with sound to let it come through, and your brain can just relax and not, not have to know what's going on, or what message is coming through. So, yeah, it's a wonderful practice.
I think that's right. And it reminds me of kind of turning yourself into the crystal bowl or the gong or the chime. And again, this seems to be the theme we're falling into today in our conversation. It's making the energy physical, passing the energy through your own physical form and vocal cords, and offering something harmonious to the world around you.
Yeah, and it's just such a great example of how powerful something simple can be. And I think, that's what, especially with movies and TV, have created ideas in our heads, especially about what we need in order to do things, or what we, I talk about time a lot, and how that, we all think we need a time machine, but we don't. It's just our consciousness. And so it's, this is another perfect example of, you just think you're humming a tone in your backyard, but you really are shifting the energy of the earth when you're doing it.
And also, very often, I think, preparing yourself for further engagement, because as you mentioned, toning is really good for the physical body. I have another friend who does toning sessions for people's physical healing. I mean, I think there are plenty of sound healing practitioners now. And so it's really one of these kind of win-win practices where you're probably aligning and clearing and up leveling your own energies as you offer some energy and service. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, listeners, test it out. find a private place or a public place if you wish. And feel free to let us know what happens. What else are you encouraging people to explore right now, Amy?
Yeah, I think some of the other things that we think we're really, able to, or connecting with the earth, when there's kind of things that are blocking us, or that we're not quite all the way there. And so I've been talking a lot about that lately, about how, for instance, interacting with the sun in a very different way. We've really, in our culture, have kind of vilified the sun, and are don't want to go out without being covered, head to toe in sunblock and clothes and sunglasses and everything else. But really, we those things are preventing us from making a true, or deeper connection with the sun, or again, some of the other elements, water, working with water, and looking at the difference between water that's been really heavily manipulated, handled, run through pipes, et cetera, versus spring water, lake water, getting out, getting your body in contact with these elements. Same with grounding. We're always, we're always in our shoes with rubber soles, or in our house, really getting outside and getting in contact. So yeah, I've been talking a lot more about that lately, just because, I think obviously anytime we can go outside is good and therapeutic and healing to us. But when we can remove some of the things from our that we're just conditioned in our daily culture, that are keeping us further separate, that's when some of these connections can be made on a very different level, and we can actually witness how our bodies were designed to work with the earth in a very different way than most of us have been experiencing it.
I really appreciate that you're talking about that. I'm very alert to the discussion here in the US, and I think this is true in any industrialized location, about how so many people now perceive nature as something that you encounter on the TV screen. And, then you might have your lawn, but you're treating it with chemicals. And
Right.
we've become accustomed to something very artificial, very sanitized, and kept separate from us, exactly as you said, with all the clothing and the sunblock and the sunglasses and the shoes and the bug spray and all of this. So I think you're right. It can really be revolutionary even for people to kind of encounter nature in our bodies without all of the blocks or intermediaries. Even I know the difference between a swimming pool and standing in a natural body of water. I'm not myself a big swimmer, but I love to stand in, a lake or a creek or a river. Completely different experience than being in a swimming pool. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that you raised this, because it's important for us to kind of take ourselves out of the saran wrap and get back into contact with the mother.
Yeah, absolutely. And, water in its natural state is full of sacred geometry, is full of, again, consciousness in a very different way than the water that, comes out of our tap in most places. And so, but it's also an exchange. And I think we don't realize that, like, just putting our finger in a body of water, like the whole body of water reacts and notices that we're there. And so, having those exchanges where we can have the water on our skin and we can be sharing our energy as well is, another healing practice. And yeah, anytime you're in water, you're instantly grounded. So it feels good to us as well to have that experience.
Yeah, I love that you talk about it as an exchange, because it seems to me that people can get very exhausted feeling like, okay, if we're going to turn things around on this planet, humans have to do a massive amount of work. We have to fix the earth. And I myself believed that several years ago. I no longer see it that way, but it's a very exhausting, burdensome perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Coming into this understanding and experience of the exchange, I give, I receive, I contribute, I get supported, we teach one another. It's a completely different way of being. And it is just so important. And I can tell you're really familiar with that. Can you say more about that for our listeners? Maybe give some examples. How else do you experience that exchange, or how else do you encourage people to start experiencing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, like, we kind of have been trained of, like, see it to believe it. And so if we don't see it, it's just not happening, which isn't true. And so it is a little hard. Sometimes you just have to No. Certainly, there are many studies for those who like to go and look. They're just also not popularized because, no one makes any money when you go, sit outside and let the air touch your skin. And so, um, you know, you can dive into, looking into more of this if you want to feel like it's happening from a scientific level. Certainly, most people are familiar now with the water studies that where you can see water reacting and recrystallizing itself into different shapes depending on the energy that's directed to it or the words that are spoken to it.
Yeah, the
And
work
so,
of Emoto from Japan. Is that what you're thinking of? Yeah.
yes, exactly. And so, the more love-filled, happy, joyous type words and energies. Obviously, the water being a liquid crystal can instantly restructure itself in reaction to that versus uh, you know negative type energies or words. And so when you really think about how much of our bodies are made up of water, you realize, our bodies are, reacting in nanoseconds to every input in our environment. And so um, that kind of helps me in my mind to understand how I'm also interacting with that world around me. How, as I'm moving through the world, right, there's a ripple effect going out, and everything feels me, and I feel everything else. But that's a good practice, even to just picture in your mind and imagine as you're walking, like, oh, that tree can feel me. The ground knows that my feet are on it right now. All of these different um, kind of experiences. And as you kind of shift your mind and your perception of that, I think you start seeing examples of it in your environment, and you start realizing, oh, I was swimming in that lake when I had that really good idea, or when I had, when I figured out how to solve a problem, and that was information being shared with you. And so, yeah, you said once you start looking for it, you'll see it all around.
You'll see it. And I think people can sometimes easily recognize that they've already experienced this with companion animals, right?
Oh,
That's,
absolutely.
in fact, we're so accustomed to having sort of special connection with our companion animals that a lot of us don't even really reflect on it or talk about it. But, if you have ever lived with an animal or you do now, you can kind of realize, oh, yeah, we do know each other's presence. We affect
Mhm.
each other. We even telepathically communicate in a way that I kind of take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody thinks it's weird, right? But then it's weird if you talk to a tree. But
Yes,
but
exactly, right?
I find, yeah, I find the more that I talk and share, about my experiences, the more people who maybe are, skeptical or, think that they haven't had this experience will tell me, oh, except that tree in my front yard, her name is Wanda. And, just like that, you realize, yeah, somehow that got communicated to you, and you're, very familiar with the tree and its energy and its name, or how it wants to be called. And so, yeah, the more we can go out and have these experiences, the more exchanges we realize are happening, because humans, we're the only ones who've created this complicated language to communicate, right? Everybody else on the planet is communicating telepathically. So if we just understand that that's a skill that we can learn and experience, like, the whole different world will open up.
Yeah. And so often, if people are able to think back to their childhoods, I think they realize, oh, yeah, I did have those experiences when I was a kid. Before the world convinced me that telepathic communication doesn't exist,
Right.
I experienced this with another human or with an animal or a tree or a body of water.
Yeah, yeah. Or that using our imagination is something that only children are allowed to do.
Right. Right. Yeah, that is really important to me lately, that idea, because I think we're really in danger if we stay attached to our reading, our sense, our judgment of, well, this is the way that things are. Well, okay, that's the way things are right now. Air pollution, for example, um, because we're accepting that. But as soon as more and more of us imagine an alternative, well, of course, it's already being built daily through the growing renewable energy transition and um, regenerative agriculture, which is drawing carbon out of the atmosphere. But I feel like we need to emphasize this so much right now, is accepting the way things are is a path to a very, very uncomfortable future. Whereas daring to imagine the way that you would like things to be, the way that would feel delightful and nourishing and exciting and beautiful, that's really the path that we human creators need to be walking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our reality is a lot more flexible than we've been led to believe. And so the more we realize that and the more we explore and the more we experiment, I mean, every possibility is already out there and already happening somewhere. And so all we have to do is make the little shifts that start bringing those kind of different realities closer into this one. And yeah, and it's totally possible. And it just we have to take ourselves as human beings off autopilot and actually participate in partnership with the earth and with all of the other consciousnesses here.
Yes, and realize that our thoughts, our feelings, how we use our heart energy, and our actions, they're just like 1,000 votes a day for whatever kind of reality you want to live in, whether it's a reality of separation and no, animals can't talk and I can't communicate with trees and air pollution's bad and climate change is going to get us, or any one of endless other realities that might be a lot more fun.
Yeah, yeah. I like to explore and experiment and think about those things too. And I think our imagination is, I mean, really the basis of a lot of what we do and what we create. And so, yeah, like spend time imagining or creating or journaling or thinking about, the actual world that we want to see.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we've become a race of creatures, human creatures, who are so entranced by technology, and yet we're skeptical of imagination. I try to remind people, well, whatever technology you like my dishwasher is being fixed today, and I like my dishwasher, and in the winter, I like my central heating, and it can
Right.
get very humid in Pennsylvania, so we use the air conditioning sometimes. But, phone, whatever technology you like, that arose out of somebody's imagination. So let's all kind of open up again to this realm of imagination and its power
Absolutely.
to make us creator beings.
Right. And how, what technology, how can we work together with technology to create the things that we want and to make space in the world for those things to come into reality?
Yeah. So, what's your personal vision of thriving humans on a thriving planet? Speaking of imagination, I think there could be billions of versions of the good life on planet Earth. What do you like to envision or imagine when you reflect on that?
That's such a good question to reflect on and to really think through, and probably depending on the day, I'll have different imaginings. But I think I don't think it's realistic or really, where we even want to go to say we need to remove all of these, things that we've created the past few hundred years and go back to the way people used to live. I think that we have progressed as humanity in this direction for good reason in some ways. That's just been, manipulated or changed for certain people, certain people's vision, their creativity, their imagination. So to me, I would like to see us move in a direction in which at the very least we are coming back into just partnership with the earth, recognizing the importance of all of these things, the air, the water, the earth itself, and making decisions based on how that will affect all of us collectively, cumulatively, and into the future and future generations. And so what specifically that looks like, it's hard to say. It could manifest in all kinds of different ways, but yeah, really kind of envisioning and imagining that that this conversation we're having is not is the kind of conversations that are happening everywhere, and that are completely understood, that of course we're here in partnership with everything else on the planet, including each other and other humans. And what is the best decision, what are the best creations, how is the best way for me to live together and in partnership, and honoring that. And so that would be my vision.
Yeah, I love that, with a big heart-centered emphasis on the collective, on all the beings here, everyone's right to flourish,
Mhm.
and unity consciousness as the motivator.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So people can find you on your podcast, The Earth Keepers, and your blog, Following Hawks. Do you want to tell people about the Earth Tenders Academy in case they also want to find you there?
Sure, of course. Yeah. The Earth Tenders Academy it's an online course, but something that I created after years of kind of figuring this all out and putting all of the pieces together, as far as how to actually work with earth energies, work with the spirits of the land, do healing work with the earth. So for people who are feeling like they're feeling that tug, like, I know there's something I should be doing, or I know there's this place that's calling out to me, but I don't know what to do about it. I really walk you through step by step, just even, how to do energy work, how to protect your own energy, how to, clear the energy in your home, all of those types of things. But then really going a lot deeper with, getting to know the settlement stories where you live, what is the story with the water, all of those kind of physical things, so that when you start working with the spirits of the land and they're complaining to you about the water, you understand what the issue is and what the problem is. And then, yeah, and then we go into doing actual healing work. We get on a call every month and work with somebody's home and property, and share our experiences, because I think the hardest thing I think all of us really, in doing this intuitive work, if it's not something you've grown up with, as part of your understanding or your culture, is just trusting that we're actually receiving information, that the information we're receiving, we're getting clearly. And so the more practice we have, and the more we can share our experiences, the easier it is to say, okay, yeah, I did see something, or I did experience something that was really similar to what other people were experiencing. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for people to explore this work on a much deeper level.
It sounds wonderful. I am delighted that you're not only offering those skills, but also the community. I myself have had some kind of dramatic experiences with the land I live on, and I may or may not share those at some point on this podcast, but I didn't have anyone to discuss them with. And
Mm-hmm.
except, someone I brought in as a paid consultant, and he was very, very supportive. But I really am seeing the need right now for, again, not only the kind of skills you're teaching in the Earth Tenders Academy, but the community you're creating, so that people who know that they are having experiences with plants or animals or water or the soil or their home or land have a community of people with whom to share that. So
Yeah,
really
absolutely. I think it's so important for us to be able to share and just know that nothing is too weird. nothing is nothing is not believed, and there's space to work through it all.
Yeah, and that's how we learn to trust our various senses and be more discerning and kind of keep
Absolutely.
raising that level of discernment.
Yes.
Amy, it's been wonderful to talk with you today. I really appreciate the work you're doing. Is there anything else that you'd like to offer or comment on before we bring our conversation toward a close?
Oh, I don't think so. Just encouraging everybody to get outside and enjoy the earth.
Yeah, there's so much enjoyment and companionship to be found out there. So thanks for helping people learn how to do that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Humans and Earth. Please share this episode to broaden engagement in the regeneration our world needs. You'll find social media links in the show notes. To explore our other offerings, visit www.humansandearth.com.